Welcome back to this very special series. This is part 2. So in the first one, we actually learned about how the Telangana government is taking technology and using it to actually bring forward all facets of citizenship. You know, the e-governance to this Telangana, the hub that they have out here, the T-Hub out here, 2.0. So I'm going to give you a tour of this right now. So that's what I'm going to be doing on this episode. This entire space, 3.5 lakh square feet. 2,000 startups can be housed right here. It's not just about housing them. It's what else the ecosystem is really being built around them, from the fact that they get the encouragement, the fact that there is a lot more that they get in terms of the kind of people that are involved, in terms of finance, in terms of getting the entire thing from a fledgling to where they are right now. So this entire episode is going to be about the T-Hub 2.0. Fascinating story. Don't go anywhere. Now, this magnificent building is T-Hub 2.0, spread across 10 floors in a built-up area of 5.82 lakh square feet. No, I'm not making a mistake. It really is 5.82 lakh square feet. And it's built at a cost of around 276 crores. It's a gigantic leap from its relatively humble beginning when it used to operate from the campus of IIT Hyderabad. T-Hub 2.0 is remarkable as a building, as the thought behind its inception is absolutely radical and revolutionary. The world's largest innovation campus, this facility will support 2,000 startups under one roof, with one whole floor dedicated solely for venture capitalists. In its earliest avatar, T-Hub had supported nearly 1,100 startups since 2015 and raised over 10,000 crores through funding. 215 startup companies will be shifting their base of operations from the old building to this magnificent T-Hub 2.0. T-Hub 2.0 will also boost the technology innovation ecosystem in the state and attract big new investments. First of all, congratulations. You know, like I've been saying, since I've actually walked in out here, very few things in life live up to expectations and very few surpass expectations. This one has surpassed expectations by 100x.
Thank you, Rajiv.
But you know, I want to find out so much of conversation. We spoke with the minister also. So much of what the T-Hub, T-Works and everything else comes from obviously a vision.
Sure.
But this is all about the startup world, where the dynamics change, where you have to be very nimble, where things have to move at the speed of light. And then you think of government, you think of bureaucrats, you think of the usual lethargy that is taken to be this. These two things don't usually merge, right? Super lightning and super lethargic. How have you been able to break that? Because you've had great success stories from here. So what is the model you followed to be able to pull this off?
Sure. So thank you, Rajiv. Thank you for your appreciation. But since you asked about vision, let me go back in time and try to recollect some of the first few initiatives of ours. And let us begin by how it all began. So I'm sure obviously you know about it, that Telangana is a new state. So I remember immediately within days of the new state being formed, the new government being set in, our minister, Mr. K.T. Ramarao, he actually came to the ISB and conducted a small brainstorming session with some of the faculty. We also called some other experts, intellectuals from elsewhere. So there were about some 15-20 people. And the question he had posed to them was, so how do you really move on? How do you make up for the lost time? And I still remember he had used a very evocative phrase. See, normally when you need to do something fast, you say, let us fast forward or let us fast track. If you really want to do something faster, you say, how do you leapfrog?
Right.
But he used a third phrase, which is so interesting. He says, how do we pole vault? So how do you, let us say, jump 10 times your height or maybe 20 times your height very suddenly. So I remember expert after expert who were there in that workshop, they all suggested that technology has to be the solution for you. If you really want to move fast, if you really want to leapfrog, you can't ignore technology. I mean, technology has to be the enabler to help you do that. And they said something else also, which is very interesting. They told us that in these days, in these times, most of the important technology breakthroughs, some of the most path-breaking kind of innovations are coming from the world of startups. We took that message very, very strongly. So the minister told me, in fact, at that time, I'm talking about 2014. So in 2014, the city had 2 incubators. One was incidentally in the ISB, which is still there. It's called the D Labs. One was in Triple IT, which is also there. In fact, that is one of the oldest campus-based incubator in the country. And of course, there was a third one in our biotech park, the IKP incubator. And there were just about 60, 70 odd startups in Hyderabad at that time. It was not a thriving kind of a startup hub as it has become today. So Minister said, let us chat with some of them, understand what they want from the government. What are your pain points? I mean, are you facing some challenges, some obstacles, which you think that the government can help you with? So then when we posed a question of this kind, lots of answers came. So T-Hub, actually the genesis of it is in some of the answers. So one of the answers which many of the startups told us was, see, we are in this enclave in Hyderabad, which is called Cyberabad. This is where all the tech companies, the ISBs, the Triple IT, I mean, this is the most, from a tech point of view, this is the most happening area. But obviously, in any big city, when so much is happening here, the rental prices, the land prices, property prices, they all hit the roof. So this is something which the startups told us, that we want to be in Cyberabad, but we just can't afford the rates here, and therefore we are pushed to, let us say, Begumpet or a Amirpet or a Secunderabad and so on and so forth. So they asked us if we can solve this, and then it struck the minister that why don't we build the facility in the heart of Cyberabad and offer it to the startups at literally throwaway prices. But then he also felt that it should not be just confined to a real estate play. Let us also offer them services. What are the other things? So for example, in that Q&A session, a couple of startups told us that finding the first customer is very difficult because the startup world is also very competitive. True. You are first of all competing against the large companies, you are competing amongst yourselves, and you don't have a marketing budget or an advertising budget to begin with. So finding your customer is very difficult. So Minister told us that let us create a startup policy in which we give answers to all of these problem statements which they have told us. See, normally if you read government policies, they are very kind of motherhood statements, very, very aspirational. Of course, umbrella kind of statement, written in very good English, printed in nice glossy paper and all. It all reads very well, but nothing happens on the ground thereafter. So he told us not to do so. He told us that they have told us, the startups have told us some 10-15 problems. Let our policy write answers to them, and nothing else should be there in the policy.
It was like a Q&A.
Like a Q&A.
It was an FAQ document.
FAQ kind of a document. And so if you read our policy, it's a very small document. Every sentence leads to some action, which emanated from the actual problems they brought to our notice. So then we felt that, okay, they're asking about space, let us give them that space. But Minister also is very conscious about one fact, and all of us are, that see, many policies are written with good intention. People want to do good, but still nothing else happens on the ground. And if you really dive deep into why that happens, you will find one common reason across the country, which is that no one takes full-time responsibility for it. For example, I am the IT secretary. I am the IT secretary for 7 years now, more than 7 years now. But if you ask me that you have to take responsibility for startups, innovation, of course it interests me, it's my passion. I'll be happy to spend time, but I can't spend 24 hours of my time on that. There are 20 other things that I have to be responsible for. So this is something very unique about Telangana.
So I would say, the way you explain this to me, and I think I find that to be very interesting. So basically the reason why you've been able to get all this success is, rather than just becoming an enabler, which could have been also sucking people down, you've become a problem solver.
Yes.
And that is the reason why you've been absolutely been able to accelerate so much.
Very true.
So now, very, very quick last question, because this is an important one for me. What's the final objective? If I would say, what's the final goal? All of this is coming up beautifully. What's the final goal?
See, the final goal, let us say goals, they're threefold. There are 3 goals that we are hitting at, we are aiming at. So one is that our Chief Minister has been telling us from the very beginning. As I said, the Minister is the IT Minister from the very beginning. I'm the IT Secretary from the very beginning. Whenever we go to him and tell him about some accomplishments of ours and so on and so forth, he always poses a very fundamental question. And his question is it benefiting the common citizen of the state? Okay. So our interest is that these kind of incubators, spaces like T-Hub, etc., should be aimed at solving the most pressing needs of the common person. See, so for example, we encourage lots of health tech startups to incubate here. We encourage lots of agri-tech startups to come up here and solve the actual problems which people who are involved in farming. Agriculture, as you know, supports lots of livelihoods. So that is one vision, that lots of people-focused solutions and products should come out of T-Hub. And to facilitate that, we have also, this is again something which is a very important part of our policy. We are perhaps the only government in the country which has committed that if you are a homegrown startup and if you have a product or solution which is relevant to the government, I'll procure it bilaterally from you. You don't have to run through any procurement process. See, typically government procurement processes are very complicated. These are through bids and you have to outbid everyone.
So this is something that's an open policy.
We have done away with bidding. I mean, let us say you are a homegrown startup, you have some fascinating agriculture related solution, I'll bilaterally procure. And the third very important thing is, see, we want a culture of entrepreneurship also to flourish. See, we have seen since decades, and not just in Hyderabad or in India, the world over, people are impatient for jobs. Lots of talented youth are kind of looking up to government jobs, looking up to private sector jobs. There's so much of unrest. We know quite recently what's happening about the jobs and all. So the idea is, of course, some number of jobs will be provided. It's not that there are no jobs at all, but as many young people as possible, try to motivate them to become masters of their own destinies. Can they become entrepreneurs? So these kind of institutions will become aspirational for young people.
And this could be a very good catalyst for all the three things that are their final objectives. I think this is absolutely wonderful, and this is one of those, again, I said, rare areas where, you know, a vision that turned into something that was being constructed, and now the reality. And the reality is really taking shape every single day. Thank you so much for speaking with us, and congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the launch of T-Hub 2.0 is well and truly on its way. As you can see, now we have keynote speakers and lots of breakout groups out here. There's some stuff going on here. As you can see, there's stuff going on here. It's in fact all over. I think every single space that I've gone to, something or the other is actively happening. And you know, the best part of it is that this is a very small amount of space that I've come to. This is, I think, the third floor. There are many other floors that you go to. Like I said, 3.5 lakh square feet, and I said every square inch of this place is actually all about transforming innovation. So I'm giving you the full tour, lots more to discover. So first of all, congratulations. I know everybody would be saying this. This is a momentous day out here. But more than just the congratulations, something else that I've been very intrigued by. We've been meeting, you know, we met the minister, we met Jayesh. I've been meeting up a lot of startups. The energy and excitement out here is incredible. But what I really want to know from you is the actual process. As the person at the helm of it all, can you explain the process? How do people reach out to you? What's the selection process? What do they get here different from any other innovation hub anywhere else in the world? You are now the biggest, so therefore you've got to do things differently. Can you take us through?
Sure. So I think, Rajiv, what we do is there are two or three different angles and approaches we take. So the first one is, see, entrepreneurship is something which usually you should get the bug early, right? So if you start young, you know, it becomes easier.
Right.
So one of the things we do is we work with a lot of colleges. So we have a program around creating an entrepreneurial mindset. Okay. So we go to colleges, work with young people, you know, throw them some challenges and ask them to just experiment, right? And it has nothing to do with grades and all of that stuff. So this is all about inculcating an entrepreneurial mindset. Okay. So that's where we have a program, we call it, it's a program called Launchpad. So we go to colleges and help them identify about 50 young people who have potentially entrepreneurial inclinations.
Okay.
We talk to them about the basics of entrepreneurships. We get role models to go and talk to them, to inspire them, tell them about what it is to become an entrepreneur. So obviously there are many success stories in entrepreneurship. There are also failures. So you need to know it's not easy, it's hard, but if you're willing to be passionate, you have committed, you have a great idea, there's no reason why anybody can't be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So that's the first part. The second part is if you've got an idea, right? So let's say there's a young person who's come up with an idea. Now usually when there's a young person who comes up with an idea, that idea has to be fleshed out, right? So you have to think through about the market potential, the technical feasibility, can you build a team which can build a business of scale?
True.
How do you make money and all of those things? So we have a program called Masterclass, which really helps them to kind of go through the drill, go through the
Basically,
rigors.
you're saying everything not taught in school and college.
Correct.
Literally,
So essentially,
right?
how do you build? Suppose you want to build let's say a direct-to-consumer brand, right? And you're going to be competing with the big boys. How do you acquire talent? When you're pitching to a VC, for example, how do you demonstrate to the VC that you can actually make money with what you're trying to do? So all of it is very experiential.
Okay.
So what we try and do in all our programs is, if you come into a program, we try and first understand where you are on each of these, right? And what help do you need? So for example, you build something.
So I'm interrupting out here because, like I said, lots of people watching this their first question will be, how do you get through to you? Do you have a process in that? Can someone just email you in the beginning?
So what we do is two things. First is, we have a large co-working space, right? So in this facility now, we can have 800 startups, right? Again, we try, see, one of the things for us, right, is important. We have to balance two parts, right? We have a social purpose, which is we want to get more startups, but we also have to make sure that we get more of them to become winners, because they have a role model effect, roll-on effect of getting more people to come in and start thinking about this, right? So we balance that. It's not an easy thing to do, but we try and do that, right? And then you can apply online. For example, for all our programs are open. We don't have any this thing.
Okay.
We go through a set of questions,
Okay.
right? So we'll try and define where you can fit in. So for example, you might be an idea stage startup, so you can get into our masterclass.
Right.
You could be a startup which has already got some traction. Then you could be part of a program we call Lab 32.
Okay.
Right? And if you are building a product, right, how do you make sure that the customer experience, the UI, UX, the tech stack you're using, all of that are built for scale, right? So we have another program called Rubik.
Okay.
So we basically look at the startup, evaluate,
Look at the
and
stage
then
and
stage
therefore
and then decide.
inculcate
right?
them.
And then in some cases, we also, what T-Hub has been able to do is, because over a period of time, when we started, there were only 2 incubators in Hyderabad, right? Now there are 57. So what we do is, if we think you are, let's say, very early or premature stage, then we work very closely. We're trying to build an ecosystem here, right? So our approach is, might call it a string of pearls, right? So bring different pieces together. So for example, if you are, as you said, if you are a hardware entrepreneur, we'll then send you, listen, let's go and work with these guys.
Okay.
Or if you are something in the gaming or animation, we'll work with the gaming guys. If you are in the life sciences space, you can go and work with IKP. So the whole idea is to bring a one city, one state approach and get everybody to work together.
Right.
That's one. And when you're trying to build an ecosystem, we think about an ecosystem as having many components. So what do you need? You need great entrepreneurs, right, who can be role models and all of that. That's one. You need corporates who are supportive, because the startups can sell through, get market validation of what they're building and all of that. You need access to capital, right? And then, which is funding and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Then you need to look at how does academia get involved.
So these are the 2 parts that I also want you to solve for me. So the academia part of it and the funding part of it, and the last part of it is the go-to-market strategy is one strategy.
Correct.
I've also heard that you actually have systems where, if it's applicable to government, if it's something that the government can use, and you're a homegrown company from here, you'll actually be able to procure from them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
So
yes.
that's a major changeover again.
Correct.
So very quickly, if you can tell me about these 3 things.
Sure. So from an academia corporate thing, we have some of India's best academic institutions here. So we have the Indian School of Business, we have IIIT, we have the University of Hyderabad, and many others. Right? We get those profs in to come and mentor these startups. Right? The second part is industry. So what we do is, every quarter we run events, we call it Confluence. It's like a speed dating event where they pitch, and in many cases that could lead to some customer engagement, POC, in some cases funding. So that's something we do all the time, right? With government, we have an entity called Emerging Tech, which is part of the government, which also rolls up to Jayesh. right? And their job is to see how you can use innovative technology in improving the government's functioning. Could be government to business, government to customer, government to to consumer, and so on. So, for example, something around blockchain. So we had a startup here which built a vaccine traceability system using blockchain.
Okay.
So that got deployed. We had a startup which built a solution around blockchain for chit fund monitoring, right? That got deployed. Then for vaccine delivery, we have a couple of drone startups, right? So medicine from the sky. So through that initiative, the government engaged with them. These are all done on a direct bid basis, no tendering, no net worth, all those standard criteria which bog down startups. If they like the solution, they encourage you to bid directly.
Fantastic. I think that itself is, the game changer.
Yeah.
So, it's been fascinating to see the fact that something that was, on paper just a few years back, because I was part of it at that point when it was just being envisioned, this entire thing, to come and see it here today and to see so much more that is happening with T-Works and of course with the gaming and the imaging part of it. So congratulations on all of this, and I'd love to come back again and again just to see the progress of everything. I'll be back for T-Works for sure. And I hope to meet up with you again and again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Wonderful, and
pleasure
congratulations
talking to you, and look
again.
forward.
Absolutely.
And
thank you so much. All right, that was quite a journey. This is a massive space. But I loved taking a look at what the Telangana, the T-Hub is all about. T-Hub 2.0, about 5.5 lakh square feet of space. Then T-Works on the outside, another building coming up. And especially how this whole thing works, I think, was absolutely fascinating. But remember, this is now part 2 of a 3-part series. Next week, we're going to go and actually meet the startups, the innovations, and I'll give you a demo of each and every one of them.